What is the toughest match / super match both of you can recall ever having in your careers? Did Ryan ever pull against Earl Wilson? The toughest match I've ever had. I'll go first on this one.
Yeah.
Man, every match that I've lost was tough. It's and I've lost a lot of them. I don't know that I've ever. Okay, I'll tell you what. The toughest match I ever arm wrestled was the 2001 A-side final match with the right arm against Anatoly, and it was in Poland, and we arm wrestled for 5 minutes.
Holy shit.
And it was every which way, every foul, every fast start that you could possibly get, both of us with a full count, and arm wrestling and arm wrestling and arm wrestling to the point that the person that was photographing it walked all the way around the gymnasium and got multiple angles of the same match and had lots of time to do it. That was my hardest match. And I lost on fouls. And it was A-side final. So if you do the math and you know the way the brackets work on that, I should have been pulling for the silver or the bronze against the next guy in the bracket. Somehow I ended up in fourth.
Jesus.
And then we had a guy come in and go through the B-side and beat Anatoly very easily because he was extremely tired from our match as well. So that was my toughest one. Have I pulled Earl Wilson? Yeah, a lot. And probably Earl has more wins on me than I have on him. The more recent matches we've had, I've managed to get the win on him a fair amount of times. Can't tell you when the last time we arm wrestled was. It might have been 2010. And I believe I won the left arm and he won the right arm at the Nationals. And we had silvers respectively. So
I was just thinking 2001. That's incredible. I didn't think you started that early. I thought you only started around 2003. Wow.
1997.
Wow.
1997.
Wow. Yeah.
And my first match at a national championship was in 1997 against the reigning world champion at the time, Mr. Mike Gould, and he crushed me. I had nothing for him.
Yeah.
And it took me a couple of years before I had anything for him at all, and you know.
Yeah. I remember in 2005 going to Tokyo with you, and I remember your finals with August Smeagol?
August Smeagol, yeah.
The huge German. And, man, it seemed like he had not the most tactical or mechanically sound player, but boy, was he strong. I don't know if you took a loss. I know you won. I don't know if you took a loss or came back.
I didn't win. I actually beat him on the right arm. I managed to get a silver to him. And in the left arm, I went for a top roll. He stopped it, and I pressed straight down and pinned him earlier on. And they protested it. Neil Pickup was actually there helping him protest it, saying that there's no possible way I could have pinned him before his elbow came off the back of the pad, which seems like the weakest protest I've ever heard of.
Yeah.
Like, oh, he lost before. He got an elbow foul before that. I'm like, oh, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
So he came up through the B side, and we pulled in the final. In the very first match I pulled against him in the final, I just went straight flop wrist with my left arm, and I had my palm of my hand flat on the table before we slipped out, and they put us in the strap. And he managed to actually beat me twice at that tournament, and I took 2 silvers in Tokyo. I actually I won in 02 and I won in 03. I took 04 off. I came back in 05 and took 2 silvers.
Did you regret not going to South Africa in 04?
Yeah,
I always
absolutely.
thought I started 1 year too late because I would have loved to go to South Africa.
But 04, I mean, did I regret it? I mean, that's the year that I fought, and then my daughter was born in November of that year, so I would have literally left 2 weeks after she was born to go to World Championships.
No.
So do I regret missing the tournament? Yes. Do I have any regrets about the reason for it? No way. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. It's the toughest match. That's a great question. Physically, my toughest match that took a toll on my body was 2017. A couple of years ago in Boston, I was at a Vermont State tournament, and I talked shit to Trevor Buzzell, and wicked strong left. But on the practice table, I was beating him, and we arranged a super match, and it happened in Boston It was I don't know what it was, New England State, I forget, but it was Boston. It was a big tournament. It was a big venue, and he came in about 265. I was about 163, something like that. And I stopped every match. I actually got the first win on him, but every match to put the brakes on him. And we started in a hook to put the brakes on him. And I'm posting my leg. It took so much out of me, and then he would keep surging and surging, but just to hold him off, or to prevent, or even trying to get him back up partially towards center. It took so much out of me that I think for 2 weeks my core hurt. I was coughing up blood that night. Like my whole the general trauma and stress on my body from that one match. I ended up pulling the tournament after and just got dusted. I had nothing, even with my right arm. It took such a toll on me. My right arm, my pec girdle was so fatigued that even holding the peg and trying to go sideways with my right arm, I was down to like 30%. It was unreal. As close to and I watched the video and I said to myself, I was sure my arm was going to break. The tension, my arm is like an anchor stopping the match. My whole body is shaking. My whole body is shaking for about 20, 25 seconds, just holding off. Psychologically, losing to John Brown was tough because I knew I had the stronger arm. I believe that was the better arm wrestler. He was able to be so patient and come out on my wrist and flat hand me, and he couldn't pin me. That was a tough one, tactically, psychologically. Excellent win for him and an excellent loss for me because I had to do some adjustments afterwards. It's the first time I ever, in over a decade, that I lost my hand or didn't gain a hook. And then, of course, there was a tough one in 2005, my first super match in Connecticut. It's the one where Jerry Caderet and Travis had a super match. Well, I had a super match with Benji Dwyer. He was supposed to go with a guy from Florida. That guy bailed. I took his place. $500 in a hostile environment. I knew that he couldn't top roll me, and I knew he couldn't beat me in a hook. And I had a friend that actually put the money up for me. He was so certain he wanted to put his own money and double it. So he actually wagered the money. First match, he tried to top roll. I sunk him in and beat him. Second match, he went into a hook, and I slapped him even quicker. And then he went 3 straight matches in a dead wrist tricep press. And I was 6 months into the sport. I had no way to defend that. And I was just, you can even see on the videos, in a dazed state of confusion. And that was tough emotionally as well. So I guess those 3 for different reasons are ones that always linger in my memory as either physically or psychologically the toughest losses I've taken. I always think of the losses. Yeah, those were tough ones. All good. I needed them, but they're all good in their own.
I remember that. That's back when Pete Milano used to run all those big events.
Yeah. They even claim him and James Rodriguez claims that was the inauguration of super matches, 2005, Black Bear Saloon, Connecticut, Norfolk, Connecticut. Just the next event, I think they had Dave Randall versus Devon. Anyway, they just started really, really hyping up those super matches. And I think for me, prior to that, I don't know how popular they were. But yeah, that was a good honor for me. It was a good loss. Good loss. I think all losses are good unless you came in mentally unprepared or physically unprepared. But no. That was a hell of an event. Yeah.
Right on. All right, this one is here we go again. At the 2009 Mike Gould Classic, of which I believe Chris Gobby participated, there was a man that made it to the final in the 176-pound class against Crazy George. He actually had one win in the finals against George, and they're talking about Kyle Sillito.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Kyle grabbed Crazy George's thumb and just pulled him down hard against the pad. This is something I've never really seen before. The competitor's full hand was underneath his opponent's on the opponent's pin pad. He got the win, and Crazy George was not happy. Crazy George is never happy after he takes a loss. I was wondering if Chris remembered this, what he thinks about it, and if either of you had anything to say about Kyle, since I cannot find much information, videos about him.
Kyle's an anomaly. Started in the sport really young. Got out. His grandfather brought him in. He was out for a lot, and then he came back in his mid to late 20s. And that year, he pulled 4 classes. So actually, when he pulled George, he was already running through the 98s when he came back to George, or was it 220s? No, I think it was 98s. So he wasn't at full pin. He had drug issues. He was a very fiery, just a physical. Like every once in a while, we see these athletes come into the sport, and it's so easy for them. It's so smooth that they almost lose interest and fade away. But he was such a natural arm wrestler. I remember at Ribfest once, He took off his shirt. He was high on coke, took off his shirt and started in front of kids, started picking fights with people. I mean, just not older in the head, like very had demons for sure. But that was an interesting match because I always claimed, I even told, what's his name? I forget his name. A couple of years ago at Michael Classic when George was there, that the best way against a king mover is to clamp around their thumb low because they're bailing. They're always bailing. They're always bailing. So if you can clamp and go straight down, the problem is you don't really want a ref grip because you can't really clamp. So with really, really good rules where anyone just can't get a ref grip at will, that you can apply that. Problem with wall is anyone gets a ref grip and it's you can't clamp down on a ref grip. But I always found clamping right around the thumb and locking that thumb and driving straight, not pressing to the side, but driving straight down into the pad will either one, pin them, or two, they will be bailing so ugly that any good reffing and any good rule system will say intentional foul winner to the opponent. So I believe that's the best way to start. I'm not saying it's always going to work, but I think that's the initial thing you need to do against someone in that move.
Yeah, I remember Kyle. I don't really have any memories of him, but I remember him as an arm wrestler. I hadn't heard any stories like that, but I mean, from Ontario, it's a ways away. So I remember the win, though. I remember seeing the win. Yeah. And you know, I've seen George raise his hand to referees before as if he's going to give him a backhand, and that's just kind of what he does. It's been. I don't have much more to add as far as commentary on that particular match.
And that was interesting because 2009, I believe, was the Mike Gould where Mike was offering $12.50 per class per arm, and when it was all said and done, I believe Devon won his both 225 classes. It's where Sylvain Perron had a war with John Brzezinski, I believe. Anyway, at the end of the day, when you tallied up all the money, no one made more money than Kyle Sillito because I think he took 3 firsts and a second, or 2 firsts and 2 seconds. He walked out of there with like close to $3,000. And Devon made the statement that was the best arm wrestler of the event of the day. And then shortly after, he was fading away. I'm wondering if he ever went to a nationals. But when he was on, he did come back. And when he came back, he was taking losses. He actually took a loss to my left. When he came back, he just wasn't the same guy. And then he just had 1 or 2 bad tournaments, guys beating up on him, and never saw him again.
Yeah, guys come and go all the time, but man, the great ones stay around.
Well, it's like I always said, if you're in love with winning, if you're in love with how you feel when you win or dominate, you just won't stay around because no one, and I mean no one, can go. The great John Brzezinski could not go undefeated for that long. So if you don't love the sport, and it's a filtering system. If you don't actually love the sport for the sport, wins and losses, it will kick you out. You might come back here and there, but it will toss you out now and then.
Well, I went 15 years in between gold medals at WAF, and I understand that one was open, one was masters, but man.
And within those years, I think you were at Worlds almost every. You probably.
I was there a handful of times. Like I had the honor of pulling like Marcio and Pushkar and all those guys as they came through and moved up into the super heavyweight class.
That's why I was laughing my ass off the other night when Chuck Ryder was trying to troll you, and he's like, "Who the fuck is Ryan Espy?" And I'm like, "Dude, he's it's like," and I'm like, in North America, let's count the amount of pullers that won open WAF gold medals in the last 15 years. There's you. I don't know if John did it. I know Ron Bath did it in Manchester.
I think John did it in Japan in '99.
Okay. Ron Bath, I know in Manchester, pulled open and masters, and I think he got one of the two, or I don't know if he went double. I don't think he won 4 gold medals, but I believe he did it. Steve Rao took silver. Joyce King, did she ever take gold in open? I believe she did. Yeah. So you have Joyce King. But see, we're looking at 4 and all iconic. So I'm like, either this guy's so fucking naive or just into the sport and doesn't have the information. But I think he was just had a couple drinks and he was trolling.
Just trolling.
He had a couple drinks and he was just having fun trolling you. That's what.
Yeah, but he got a little bit triggered himself by some other guys that were in there doing things. So Earl Wilson, of course, I think holds the record still. 3 golds and a silver at the WAF championships.
Yeah.
So anybody that says that Earl's not a legend is out to lunch, man.
Well, the problem with Earl is I think he'd go down as one of the most underrated pullers in maybe North American history, or at least Canadian history. I can claim that. Just never a guy that traveled to the big cash glamorous stuff down south. Never went to Vegas in 06. Didn't hit these big things. But like yourself and Mike Gould in their heyday, loyal to Canadian arm wrestling, loyal to the Mike Gould Classic, loyal to provincials, loyal to Canadian nationals. So, but like you said, I don't think there's an arm wrestler in Canadian history that has the golds, albeit national or worlds, and he does it. I mean, Mike Gould probably comes close, but those two, wow.
Well, actually, I think Earl's got Dave Hicks might be up there too, but you got to remember, Dave Hicks, I think, didn't even start arm wrestling until he was in his 40s. Like, it was, he's a bit of a freak of nature, like, as far as what he's accomplished. But Earl, I mean, it's a question of values. Earl loved going to the worlds. He loved competing at the big world stage, and he did not necessarily care about going and trying to win money. No,
and it's an honorable thing. Tons of respect for him. And even Dave Hicks and Vern Martell, as I was coming in 05, Dave, I think his pulling was over. I think he pulled Masters in 05 Japan. I believe he pulled Masters. He was also reffing. And I think that was the last time I saw him compete at that level. Vern had one or two more Mike Goulds in him, 2 or 3 more nationals, put a beating on me, and then kind of faded. So these two iconic legends in my weight class, or the light middleweight class, they were kind of like fading out as I came in. So I don't know them, but Earl and Mike were still in there, 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10. These guys were just lighting it up. Well, mark my words, you'll see Vern Martell arm wrestle at national. I fucking hope so, man. Yeah. Even if he's not, just to see him in the crowd, just see him mulling it, having fun with people and just introducing himself to people that know of him but don't know him. It's a great thing. He needs to be in the sport in any capacity. Yeah. He needs to. Yeah. And then those past 3 questions were from our good friend Constant Insult, who just can't get laid. Yeah. And he's got one more question. Sean is his name, I believe. So this is a good one, man. You're going to like this one, and it's the horse that we've been beating since episode 1. It says, on the XSportsnews.com website, the rankings were changed on July 26th after Wall 504. There was only one change. Devon Larratt jumped ahead of Dave Chaffee in the right arm rankings, with Devon now being 3rd and Dave being 4th. This caused great controversy, as they even state on their website. We even lost a voter. He left because he strongly disagreed with King's move and believed we shouldn't accept the results of events where it is allowed. Even though not all voters agree with King's move, it was agreed by the majority that we should accept the rules or the results from WAL. I am just wondering what you think of this, and if Devon ranked ahead of Dave is justified. Well, if the result stands, which it did, it was a win. No one can debate it wasn't a victory. I'd love to know who that voter was. I'd love to know, just so I can, metaphorically shake his or her hand. But that's a strong stance right there. But I don't believe that level of King's moving should be allowed. It was allowed, and it was an official victory. So, and he beat Dave 3-0. So, of course, either you allow it or you don't allow it. But you don't kind of allow it. Nothing is no half measure. Do it or don't do it. And if you're going to accept it, which obviously they are, the ref accepted it, the league accepted it. So Dave didn't protest, so it stands, and Devon should be ahead of David. I mean, my rankings. If I was still doing the rankings, he would get 0 credit for that, because my rankings don't work in association with Wall. They run on my own judgment and discretion, and it's based on a hypothetical of what would happen in rigid rules. And in rigid rules, Dave wins, no doubt, in my opinion, just on the fact that how hard Devon was running underneath. For me, that's enough evidence. But it's an official win. It's an official win. A win's a win. Yeah. For me, it's whoever gets the W, and Devon got the W, and he deserves to move ahead of Dave in the rankings. If you're going to take away King's move, I mean, there's Michael Todd could end up being at the very top of the mountain in a very short time on who is the #1 arm wrestler on the planet. Mm-hmm. He could achieve that if they ever were to get the top 8 winner together with him. Michael Todd could very well win that match, and he would be the undisputed #1 right-handed arm wrestler on the whole planet. Now, if the rules allow for a King's move, then the King's move should be a win with the King's move should be recognized.
WAL has embraced it. They can make some pretty simple changes to, like, I don't necessarily disagree with the King's move. I disagree with the extreme King's move. So when someone's arm is completely straight, they're below the table, they can't be pinned unless you snap the guy's elbow. It's too much. I don't necessarily disagree with an open style of top roll. If you stop the person before the pin and you have to pull there, it's a different kind of thing. It's to me, it's like extreme radicalism versus, just anyway, I won't go down that path.
Well,
but
it's apples and oranges, except the orange is rotten, right?
Yeah. So should they accept the results? Yes, absolutely. A win's a win.
We've seen boxing matches where the judge's card comes out and it's disgraceful and everyone's appalled in the judge's call, and it's controversial and all this stuff, but it still stands. I mean, it still stands. It's a win on his record. You look back 10 years after, it's a win. It's not like they can put asterisk. I can put an asterisk in my mind. But in terms of the league, in terms of sheer official results, you can't put asterisks next to wins and losses. It's a win.
How would that be any different than recognizing a win on fouls?
Yeah, that's it. Wall makes the decision. They pay. They can make the decision. That's fine. I got no beef with that. I mean, I'll always voice my opinion, but they can do whatever the hell they want. They can make a King's move only league. I don't give a shit, but I'll voice my opinion. Doesn't mean it shouldn't count or the wins won't count or whatever they want to do. They're the ones paying the bills. They can do whatever they want.
And you know what? We've almost got through this whole thing. We got one more.
Yeah.
This is from Martin. And this is more of a suggestion for us and something to digest. And in this vein, we've probably done most of this, talked about all this from the majority of our show so far. He says, hey guys, great job. Congrats. I'm sending you an idea. Nice to talk about more Canadian arm wrestlers, results, injuries, super matches, events, etc. And matching super match that you would like to see, Canadian versus Canadian or Canadian versus USA. That could give ideas to promoters. I just feel there's a lot of good Canadian arm wrestler that people should know about, and not only WAL. People should send you news about them and events that you guys can promote. Just an idea. Do with it what you want. Martin Langlois.
Yeah, I figured it was Langlois from Quebec. Lives in BC, but originally from Quebec. I used to train with him. Great guy. Yeah, he's right. I mean, the problem is, I can't speak for you, but the majority of people that support and my fans, my top 10 would probably be 8 Americans and 2 guys that I can't even pronounce their name because they live, Mohammed Hassan and stuff like that. So I think the majority of the people that listen to us, only because the United States is a bigger demographic, I think at least 60, 70% of our show has to be dealing with the United States as much as we can. And of course, today was 80% Canadian content, but I mean, we have to keep true to the fans, and the majority of our fans are Americans, and we have to stay true to that.
I agree. It's we'll definitely touch and bring up names of Canadians that people have not heard before. And I think we've done that already, and we'll continue to do that. Of course, we'll promote anything we get from Canadian promoters that want us to mention an event on the show. I have no problem with that. And I said that was the last question. I'm wrong. There's another one. It's actually training related.
Good.
And this one is one that I've seen before, and I chimed in on it. How soon before a big competition should a puller stop training or cut back the intensity, in your opinions?
My buddy Kevin Gass. Kevin Gass is a good guy. This is pretty well for me anyway. It's cut and dry. 2 weeks before tournament, I stop all statics. So if my event's on the 14th on a Saturday, the 1st or the 31st, the 2 Saturdays before will be my last table session, and it will be high in intensity, very low in frequency and volume. Then all statics, gym statics, table statics end. There will be one more week of wrist work, hand work, dynamic movement in the gym, full range stuff. And then it's 7 days of absolutely nothing. When I say nothing, I think 3-4 days out, 5 days out, doing sprints, doing something just for general blood flow and to get your mind. Sometimes if you're an avid athlete and you do a lot of high intensity stuff, to take 1 full week off of all intense training or all training altogether, could have a mental, and it won't. I'm not saying it'll hurt your arm wrestling performance, but it's just not a great place to live in. So I would throw in some sprints, totally lower body stuff. I wouldn't even touch core, just lower body stuff, high intensity, low frequency, maybe 4 or 5 days out, just to get your mind wired. But yeah, for me, it's a 2-week rule, no statics, 1 week rule, no dynamics. That's simple for me.
It's a tough question. If I'm answering it for someone else, I'd need to look at their training and what exactly they're doing, seeing if they are pushing themselves as hard as they could. But for me, it's 10 days, 10 days with no heavy statics, no table. And in that 10-day period of rest, there might be 1 day where I'm doing stuff for blood flow. And that is it, other than visualization. And, I'd like to think that I've taken some steps that maybe some arm wrestlers haven't. Like I've actually seen sports psychologists and talked about things like maintaining high intensity over short durations and how to trigger that without burning myself out before a match. Because I've seen that's a different subject, but I revisit all those things in that 10-day period. But 10 days and I should feel kind of crappy and deflated by the time I get to that event. And that's how I want to my muscles to feel when I get there. I want them to feel like they're completely recovered and unused.
Yeah, it's a good point on styles, because I've always said that if you're a hitter and you need to explode, much like yourself at a high-level event, you need dormant, you need not tired, but you need dormant muscle fibers that are not tensed up or stressed. You might feel soft and you might feel loose, but that's what you need to explode. If you're more of a catcher, load into a type setup type guy like myself, I've gone to tournaments with 3, 4, 5 days and I feel really good, but I don't react quick enough. So my strength is there, but against higher, more elite guys where I have to actually react a lot quicker on the ready go, I'll go with the 2-week, 1 week thing, just to make sure, to absolutely be certain that I snap into the match as quick as possible. Not that I'm a hitter by any means, but even when you're not a hitter, your reaction time has to be incredibly quick, even though you're not technically offensively hitting.
That's right. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Now you had some stuff.
Just on the other question we didn't address, Canadian super matches. You and Devon would be huge. It would never happen unless Wald deemed it. But that's something I'd love to see in terms of 2 top Canadian arm wrestlers going at it.
It's an interesting topic, because I actually, as you know, I had a brief conversation with Devon via Messenger a few days ago. I invited him on the show. He declined. He has his reasons for not wanting to come on the show, but I also threw it out there, when are we going to have our left-handed match? And he suggested that maybe WAL would be considering something in the future. That being said, unless Devon knows something I don't know, I don't think WAL is anxious to get a left-handed series going. I think they are happy with what they're doing and building that and bringing in new guys. I would love it if they did, because I would be near the top of that food chain immediately. But anytime a promoter wants to make it make sense, give me a few weeks notice and I will be there to arm wrestle Devon Larratt left-handed. So there it is.
Yeah. I don't think he necessarily wants that match, if he's being honest. Money's money and opportunities are opportunities. But if he can handpick his opponents for the next 5 to 10 years, I don't think Ryan Espy left-handed is on that match. Is on that scale. But I'd love to see it. I think everyone would love to see it. I think a lot of people would love to see there's a lot of left-handed arm wrestlers or great arm wrestling, left arm wrestling potential super matches that we're not being able to see because they're right hand only. But they know what they're doing, and eventually, when you start running out of the same possible matchups to the right, you go left. There's some interesting stuff out there.
Well, the great part of it is all these left-handed matches we're not seeing. There's promoters in the States that are kind of picking up
absolutely.
And they're starting to, even though the guys are under WAL contract, they're not necessarily tied up with a left-handed anything. So
right.
It's a gray area, and they can make some amazing matches unless the WAL is doing something that I don't know about.
Okay.